Hello dear students, in today's video we are going to discuss the poem Stolen Boat written by William Wordsworth. As you know, William Wordsworth was one of the founders of English Romanticism, and he is remembered as a poet of spiritual and epistemological speculation. William Wordsworth, his poems mainly speak about human relationship and nature, and we can say William Wordsworth is also called as a poet of nature or nature poet, because his most of the poems are describing or which is carrying a message of nature or about nature. His most of the poems are explaining or describing about nature, or some of the incidents from that have taken from nature will be there in the poems of William Wordsworth. The poem Stolen Boat is an extract from Wordsworth's autobiographical poem, The Prelude. This poem speaks about a childhood incident of his life. So this poem, The Stolen Boat, that we are going to discuss now, this poem has taken from the autobiographical poem of William Wordsworth, The Prelude. And this this poem Stolen Boat is discussing about an incident which had happened in the childhood of the poet, and some of the things, very beautiful things related to nature and related to human quality, and how nature affects or what nature can teach a human being. These all things we are going to learn today from this poem. Moreover, this poem or most of the Wordsworth's poems has a strong connection with the nature. Once he said, "Nature is our friend, philosopher and guide." This sense even we can see in this poem also. So we are going to start our poem. First we will recite the poem, and after that we will explain or we will analyze the poem line wise. So let us begin. One summer evening, led by her, I found a little boat tied to a willow tree within a rocky cave, its usual home. Straight, I unloosed her chain and stepped in, pushed from the shore. It was an act of stealth and troubled pressure, nor without the voice of mountain echoes did my boat move on, leaving behind her, still on either side, small circles glittering idly in the moon, until they melted all into one track of sparkling light. But now, like one who rose, proud of his skill, to reach a chosen point with an unswerving line, I fixed my view upon the summit of a craggy ridge. The horizon's utmost boundary, far above, was nothing but the stars and the grey sky. She was an elfin pinnace. Lastly, I dipped my oars into the silent lake, and as I rose upon the stroke, my boat went heaving through the water like a swan. When from behind the craggy steep, till then the horizon's bound, a huge peak, black and huge, as if with voluntary power instinct, upreared its head. I struck and struck again, and growing still in stature, the grim shape towered up between me and the stars, and still, for so it seemed, with purpose of its own, and measured motion, like a living thing, strode after me. With trembling oars I turned, and through the silent waters stole my way back to the covert of the willow tree. There, in her mooring place, I left my bark, and through the meadows homeward went, in grave and serious mood. But after I had seen the spectacle, for many days my brain worked with a dim and undetermined sense of unknown modes of being. Over my thoughts there hung a darkness, call it solitude or blank desertion. No familiar shapes remained, no pleasant images of trees, of sea or sky, no colors of green fields, but huge and mighty forms that do not live like living men, moving slowly through the mind by day and were a trouble to my dreams. Now let us explain the poem by reading each stanza. One summer evening, led by her, I found a little boat tied to a willow tree within a rocky cave, its usual home. Straight, I unloosed her chain and stepping in, pushed from the shore. It was an act of stealth. So, in this stanza, each stanza probably carrying 4 to 5 lines. Actually, each stanza carries 5 lines only. But while we explain, while we analyze this poem, we are going to analyze, or I am going to explain like a full stop from a capital letter to a full stop, like where we can end up with a meaning. So according to that only today I am going to explain. So in the first stanza, in these 5 lines, we are seeing an act of stealth. The poet in his childhood or his young age, one summer evening, by the guidance of the nature guided him, and he found a little beautiful boat which was tied to a willow tree. So he within a rocky cave, he with the guidance of nature, he reached near to a we can call it near to the shore, near to a river. He had seen a boat which was tied to a willow tree. He just went and unloosed the chain, and he had taken the boat to the water, and it was an act of stealth. It is stealing, right? No, he went and he had stolen the boat, and he started riding the boat in the river. And troubled pleasure, nor without the voice of mountain echoes, did my boat move on, leaving behind her still on either side small circles glittering idly in the moon, until they melted all into one track of sparkling light. And he was little bit scared while he was taking, or more than scare, more than fear of that act of stealth. He had so much anxiety. He was very anxious while he was taking the boat, while he was unloosing the boat from the tree. He had taken the boat and he had taken it to the onto the river. And while he was taking the boat, that echo in the cave, there was a sound of echo. While he was moving the boat, he had listened the voice of echo, and he just left that sound, and he had taken that, and he taken it to the river. While he kept it to the river, while he started moving in the moonlight, as we know, it is evening, it's night time. In the on the water, he had seen some circles, like which is created by suddenly the water which had shaken. At that time in the moonlight, the poet had seen some circles which was looking very beautiful. He had seen some glittering circles, and after that, the circles are cleared, then water became very calm and cool. It became normal plain water which has no shakes at all. And it was like a poet saying that after making that circles, and it became one single track, that my boat was started moving. But now, like one who rose, proud of his skill, to reach the chosen point with an unswerving line, I fixed my view upon the summit of a craggy ridge. The horizon's utmost boundary, far above, was nothing but the stars and the grey sky. Now, he started riding his boat. He started moving his boat with his oars. Oars means, as you know, that one long pole with flat ends, which are used for rowing a boat. To row a boat, we use something, no, that you have seen in movies or videos, and you can see that. What is that? Some of you have seen, who are living near to the rivers or seas, and only have seen it, might be. So he started moving. He was starting to row his boat. He was feeling like he was rowing the boat like a skilled person who is in this rowing and all, who is very skilled. Like that, our poet, he started moving the boat on the water, and to move very straightly, he kept one view. He fixed his view on a mountain range. He fixed his view. He fixed his look on a mountain range, and that is my point to reach, that is my destination. So in that way, he started moving. So according to that, he fixed one view, he fixed one look on the mountain range, and he started moving. He started rowing his boat, and at that time he was feeling like the sky, the stars and beautiful blue sky was the roof for him. So under the roof of sky, he started rowing his boat. She was an elfin pinnace. Lustily, I dipped my oars into the silent lake, and as I rose upon the stroke, My boat went heaving through the water like a swan. Elfin pinnace means small fairy look boat, very beautiful looking boat, that is elfin pinnace. So he very energetically, lustily means energetically, with great happiness, so very happily he started rowing his boat. He, by using the oars, he started moving his boat. And while he was rowing the boat, it was like a water, like it was moving on the water like a swan. Swan, you know, it's very beautiful boat which can swim on the river, on the water. So that boat also was moving like a swan through the river. Went from behind that craggy steep till then the horizon's bound a huge peak, black and huge, as if with voluntary power instinct upreared its head. I struck and struck again, and growing still in stature, the grim shape towered up between me and the stars. And still, for so it seemed, with purpose of its own and measured motion, like a living thing, strode after me. So, as we begin this, when we begin the poem, as I told, the poet was very anxious to take the boat and to row the boat on the river. But suddenly, slowly, it's not suddenly, slowly, gradually, that feel of anxiety was changing into a feel of fear. He was started feeling like so disturbed or so fearful. As we told that he fixed his look on the peak, the high mountain range. But after some time, while he was moving his boat, he felt like that mountain which is moving with me. Just he looked back, that mountain was behind him, that he felt like it is moving with him. If the nature has a power, if we can convert nature into a living creature, then the mountain range was moving with that peak, was giving little scare for him. So that one boundary, that one horizon's bound, that huge peak, black and huge peak, that mountain, that hill, he was feeling like it is moving with him. So that one peak was giving a lot of fear in the mind of our poet. So he felt like this peak is standing between the sky and the poet. So he was feeling like it is so much disturbance for him. He was feeling so much scare from the peak. He as seen this poem only we can say, if it has a it was a living creature, then how it will move, how it will follow. In the same way, the poet was feeling like the mountain range was following him, was coming with him. With trembling oars I turned, and through the silent water stole my way back to the covert of the willow tree. There in her moving place I left my bark, and through the meadows homeward went in grave and serious mood. So he scared, and suddenly he changed his direction. How he came, in the same way, very fastly, he went back. He turned around and he went back, and he left the boat from where he had taken. He went and he kept the boat in the same place only from where he had taken, and he went back to home with a serious mood. But after I had seen that spectacle for many days, my brain worked with a dim and undetermined sense of unknown modes of being. Over my thoughts there hung a darkness, called solitude or blank desertion. No familiar shapes remained, no pleasant images of trees, of sea or sky, no colors of green fields, but huge and mighty forms that do not live like living men moved slowly through the mind by day and were a trouble to my dreams. So after keeping the boat in the same place where he had taken, he went back to home, and even after reaching home also, many days he was seeing the same spectacle, the same vision that he had seen about the peak, that only was coming in his mind. Many days he saw the same, even that one vision, that one spectacle disturbed that one sight disturbed his dreams also. Whenever he was seeing the dream, he was feeling like a solitude, a feel of solitude, loneliness. He was feeling he was very lonely, alone. That loneliness he was feeling whenever he was seeing the dream. Even the vision, that sight was disturbing his dreams also. Whenever that thought was coming to his mind, he was feeling like darkness, something that might be called solitude. Poet says that we can call it as solitude. It is like nothing is there, emptiness in mind, darkness in mind. He was feeling that one scary thought, that scary vision was making him like so fearful, so scared. It was no shapes came to his mind. He hadn't seen any pleasant images like trees, sky, see nothing. He had seen anything. Even he hadn't seen colors of green field also. Only something very huge shapes was only there in his mind. Maybe that shapes, that meaning of the shapes, maybe humans cannot understand. So even that thoughts, that vision, these kinds of shapes, huge shapes, scary dreams, even it was disturbing his sleep also. Even in dreams also he was dreaming these things, but he had felt the scare. So this is the analysis of the poem. I hope you understood. By this poem, William Wordsworth is explaining to us about the wisdom and spirit of the nature. Nature refines humans. Nature has an ability to refine humans. While the poet, while he was coming to take the boat first in the beginning, when he came to take the boat, in his mind he was so proud. In his mind only visions of images. In his mind only the images of trees, beautiful colors, sea, sky, green field. These things were there in his mind. It was there in his mind. But while when he felt the scare, when the nature guided him to the right way, when he felt I am doing a bad thing, and he felt the scare, and he left his boat, he kept the boat back, and after that his thoughts, the complete thoughts in his mind had changed. It became like huge shapes. So he was feeling scared. So nature has the ability to refine people. Through this poem, William Wordsworth wanted to tell us this message only. Nature has an ability to refine us. So as in the beginning I told you, William Wordsworth is saying that nature is a friend, philosopher and guide. So in the same way only, that same sentence only is applicable in this poem also. William Wordsworth is saying that nature can guide us, it can refine us. This message William Wordsworth is giving through this poem. I hope you understood this poem. In the next video, let us see with the next chapter, and in the upcoming videos I will be explaining for the SSLC students some important questions and exam pattern as well. So see you in the next video. Thank you. Take care. Bye.